the meeting. Thank you all for attending on this chilly start to the day. First order of business is we'll call for apologies. There appear to be none. Second, any conflicts of interest to declare? Appear to be none. Item 3, confirmation of minutes from our previous audit and risk meeting. Do we have a mover? Yes. Councillor Fulton. Anyone happy to second? Councillor Bartle. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Any matters arising from the minutes? There appear to be none. We'll move straight on into deputation. So we've got Derek and April here from Audit New Zealand. If you're happy to come up and present your items, and then we'll move on to discuss item 5.1 after that. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jason. Morning, members of the committee and management. It's really a pleasure for me to again be back at Waimakariri District Council. Just maybe a brief introduction. I'm Derek Olsen, the newly appointed auditor for the District Council. I'm taking over from Yvonne, who was your previous appointed auditor. And I'm also just introducing April, who's the manager for this job. I've been with Audit New Zealand for more than 9 years and quite familiar with the local government sector as I'm doing quite a few councils and have done quite a few councils in the past. So yes, I'm really thankful for the opportunity to be able to talk to the 3 documents that you find in your pack today, which is the audit engagement letter, the audit plan, and the audit fee proposal. The audit engagement letter is probably the easy one. That is just a standard engagement letter. There's no amendment to the terms of that engagement, so it just sets out the responsibilities for myself and yourself in this relationship. What is expected of me, what is expected of yourselves in terms of preparing an annual report and for me to audit that annual report. So that is fairly standard. Then in terms of the audit plan, we had good discussions with management as well as the chair of the audit and risk and the mayor to identify risks and issues pertaining to your council, as well as looking at issues that the sector is confronted with at the moment. So based on that, we've drafted an audit plan that includes some key risks and focus areas. Top is probably the valuations and revaluations of your infrastructure assets. That's probably the biggest amount on your financial statements. So we do tend to look at that quite a bit of detail. The other area that I'll probably mention is we do look at your completeness of your vested assets, as this has been an area of contention in the past. Also looking at work in progress and whether that's appropriately capitalized at year end. There's some other areas in the audit plan that I've also highlighted in terms of risks and issues, and we've also indicated some sector specific issues that you are familiar with and aware of. The other area in the audit plan that I probably would like to highlight is the initiative whereby we try to bring work forward. So again, we realize that councils do have quite a pressured period in September and October when we come to audit, and it is quite a mad rush during trying to meet all legislative deadlines. So we are trying to bring as much work forward as possible during our audit or the audit time frame. So with that, we do see whether there are some of the areas within your accounts and your control environment that we can actually look at before that final audit visit. That does alleviate the pressure on ourselves and your staff. So again, we just urge management to assist us with that process in terms of having information available so that when we do the pre-final visits, that we've got sufficient information to audit as part of that process. So that's probably what I want to highlight from the audit plan. Then thirdly, from the audit fee proposal perspective, we are only proposing to increase the fee by $29,000 effectively. That does, I see some members frown, but that is an unwound of a previous discount, as well as just the latest fee rates increases and our staff mix that makes up that fee increase. So I'll probably pause there for any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions of the deputation? There appear to be none. Oh, sorry. Deputy Mayor Reardon.
Thank you and welcome to waimakariri. Look
Thank
forward
you.
to working with you. What percentage increase is your fee?
3%. 3%.
3%. I thought it might be more. Right, thanks for that.
No? Oh, Councillor Barton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question just revolves around the discount and the history of that not being, as a new councillor, I'm not familiar with a lot of that background. There were some comments in the report on that. Just what was the reason? Could you just break down the reason why it was put in place and why it was removed?
Yes, so we realised that there was a step change required in the fees because our fees was historically very low. So that did necessitate quite a large increase initially, and understanding that that would place a financial burden on councils, we agreed that we'll phase in that increase over a 3-year period, and as a result providing discounts over that period. So effectively this was the last year of unwinding that discount.
Thank you. Cool. There appear to be no other questions. Did you have anything further in your deputation, or?
No, that was short and sweet. I mean, I did take the documents as read, so
Yep.
yeah, I mean, at any time, if anybody has any questions, welcome to pick up the phone, and I really value the opportunity to speak to council, and you know, I'm sure throughout the year we'll value these opportunities again going forward when we present the report to governors at the conclusion of the audit. We've conducted our interim audit, so one of our first visits. There's no material findings from that, but if there are, we've got a requirement to report any significant deficiencies within your control environment. That will also come through a formal report to council, but from our initial visit we haven't identified any significant deficiencies, so that's a good plus point. And we might just informally communicate with council at the conclusion of the second visit in terms of what we've done and how far we've progressed, just to give you a status update of where we're at before we start the final audit.
Before we go, could I just probe you for one or two questions? I didn't realise that was the end of the dissertation. So in terms of our fees, are they structured in terms of like-for-like council, or is it based on the work within each council? Like, would we expect Hood and Audit to be paying something comparable to what Christchurch is, or is it based on size and organisation?
It is size and complexity per council. The OAG does an annual moderation. You would have also now seen that effectively we are no longer Audit New Zealand and Office of the Auditor General as two separate entities. We've now collapsed into one organisation known as the Audit Office. So again, maybe just on that, you'll see that we're only proposing a 1-year fee due to all the changes within the environment and the impact of the new organisation, what that will mean for fees going forward. But to answer your question specifically, the fees are benchmarked against other similar councils of similar complexity and size. So your fees in terms of hours would more or less equate to other organisations of a similar size and nature.
Okay, cool. And I suppose that's probably a question for Chris more than anything, but under 4.9, audit fees don't include effort relating to implementation of council's financial management. I'm guessing that's just because it's outside of scope, rather than, like, we're not quite sure how much work is involved in that just yet.
Yes, and the implementation, majority of the implementation we'll look at next year.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so generally that's because the impact Datascape affects next year's financials, because we're reporting next year within Datascape. So a lot of the focus there is really around the capitalisation of the, non-capitalisation, the assets, the expensing of the system at the moment, and looking at the treatment of that. So it's not actually about looking at the systems that are being implemented until next year. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Redden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Second question. Derek, you've referred to the reorganisation potentially of local government. Will amalgamations and so on result in lower audit fees?
I mean, initially, there might be an increase in audit fees because one needs to consider the amalgamation itself, and that has certain, I think, financial and accounting implications. And then once the new organization is established, I think as a collective, the fees will reduce because now you no longer audit 3 or 2 organizations, you'll be auditing 1 organization. So there might be a marginal increase due to the size of the new entity, but it will be reduced because there won't be 2 or 3 other audits. So at a local government level, the total fee envelope will reduce.
Will reduce.
Will reduce.
Even though larger entities will have more functions and be bigger entities.
Yes, I mean, I think that's what I'm saying. There's a marginal increase, so you won't be adding 2 audit fees for the 2 entities that you've audited into one. There's some synergies through that process, and you might have a marginal increase in the one entity, but it won't equate to the audit fees of the 2 separate or 3 separate entities.
Okay, I realise, very speculative.
I think it's a bit too soon to speculate, but my experience of previous reorganisations is it doesn't save money. It actually costs money all across the sector, and it will continue to do that for some years before you get efficiencies that come into play. So just like Derek said around audit fees, there will be significant increases around audit fees to actually look at all the work and how it's done, how systems are actually integrated together. All of that will have to be audited, and I'll have to get a good sense of control over a bigger organisation, which takes a lot of time and effort. So you won't see any efficiencies in the short term with most councils, I suspect, depending on what they all look like and how they all settle at the end of the day.
So sorry, Councillor Ward, just to clarify, were you also mentioning that you were wanting to move at some stage? Okay, we'll wait until we talk to Chris about the report to move anything, but question. Councillor Ward.
Oh, given that we're about to go into a new computer system which starts on the 1st of July, is that going to help keep your, once that's in place, is that going to help keep your auditing times down? Would we become more efficient and more easier for you to audit?
I think, I mean, like with any system, there is the initial teething problems, and it probably depends on the type of system and the type of reporting that one can extract from the system, how efficient that is. So it's, I think the proof will be in the pudding. It's again, really very early to say what the type of efficiencies will be from a new system, but there's always initial additional cost as part of that implementation, and just determining what one can rely on, to what extent one can, to what extent one needs to verify all the transactions within the system. So yeah, it's part of the normal process that we'll go through when one implements a new system.
Thank you.
And just one final question before we move on to the report, if that's all right. What does the future of AI look like for audits moving forward?
I think it's probably for us in its infancy at the moment. We have introduced a financial statement checker tool that looks whereby we import a set of financial statements, and that does all the verification for us, and it can produce a report that we give back to management whereby they can easily fix that. Also, I know we've got certain projects in ours to see to what extent we can utilize AI. And it's already, I mean, just your normal document management, your diary management, there's a lot of efficiency that's being gained there that I'm sure it's probably across all organizations. We are also looking at utilizing data a lot more. We do have pilots whereby we've extracted full data sets of entities onto our own platform and database, and then manipulating that data to extract trends and anomalies and specific areas that are identified that we can focus on. So I think data analytics coupled with AI is something that we are definitely looking at to see to what extent we can utilize it in the audit profession and process.
Cool. All right. With that, we'll move on to agenda item 5.1, which is audit planning letters and Audit New Zealand. Chris.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Look, I'm going to take the report as read. I mean, the key things that we highlight there are the 3 letters that Derek has issued, the areas of audit focus, which Derek's just outlined, the timetable and the audit fee, which we've just been talking to. So I'll be reiterating the same points that Derek has just outlaid. So I don't think we'll go any further into that. But happy to take any questions on the report. Perfect.
Any questions? Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just looking at actually it's page 30, and it notes other areas of interest across the local government sector. Obviously, we're getting a welter of legislative sort of changes and proposals and edicts from local government. In terms of compliance with our, that we have from our auditing processes and material disclosure of information, how hard do you think it is going to be that we actually keep abreast of what we actually need to do to compliance with local government legislation? And I think someone at the local government conference said we're building a plane as we fly it. So how do we comply with audit and all this sort of stuff? We're rebuilding it as we go.
It's a really good question, and it's something that we do keep across very closely. I think naturally with a lot of it's driven by reporting-based legislation in terms, or regulation in terms of what we're complying with from an audit perspective. So if you look at our submissions on, for instance, the regulatory reporting for local water done well, or looking at any changes that are coming into the Local Government Act in relation to our reporting. So we're very close on those, particularly with the submissions process that we do, and we see that up front before it actually goes into legislation. So we're naturally preparing for that as it comes into and applies. So it's something that between sort of strategy and business and finance and business support, we naturally work together as the subject matter experts for them in that space.
Just on that, the post-balance date events might be interesting this year from an audit perspective. They may have to comment on there about various going concerns of the council in its current form, and what it looks like going into the future. So we'll be looking for some advice there on what a note should really look like in that part.
So just to that, perhaps an example and a question, it mentions 31 misstatements of differences and or omissions of amounts and disclosures that may affect your overall understanding of your statements. So is that the mechanism that the CEO just alluded to, that we maybe have to make some post reporting sort of disclosures or clarifications as to?
Yeah, so those two things are different. What Jeff's referring to is the need to disclose matters of significance that happen after the end of the reporting period. So after 30 June, if something really significant happens, we have to disclose something called subsequent event. So if there was something that was so significant that's important to the readers of the financial statements, we disclose that in a note in terms of what's actually happened for the context of the reader. And we'd do that while we're discussing that with Audit New Zealand in terms of how that what they're seeing in terms of other councils as well. So we provide a sort of a mocked up disclosure for their comment and review prior to it being finalised within the annual report. The misstatements piece there, that's essentially you can read that as errors, and those are errors that are either corrected or uncorrected. So Derek will report to us those if they were to be left uncorrected, because he'd be required to.
Any further questions of the report? We have a mover in Councillor Ward. Do we have a second? Councillor Fulton. Councillor Ward.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today, April and Derek. And it was a pleasure meeting you the other day, and I know that you'll be looking after our interests really well in the future and guiding us through. So, but I can assure you that, and as you know, we have a very good team working for us and keeping us safe and in line. And I do note, though, that with the increase, with the $15,000 discount audit fee being dropped, that's about 10% on last year's one. So I'm hoping that we won't have any further increases over the year. So we'll just keep that in mind, please. So anyway, all I can say is I'll be supporting this. I'm sure we'll all support this because we need to have you looking out for us and keeping us in line. So thank you very much for your work.
Maybe just on that, the Auditor General, he recently also presented to the Select Committee to Parliament, and he made a commitment to Parliament that audit fees won't increase. So, and I think that's why, you know, there's a big relook at audit fees across the board. So whether that impacts the rates, because there's two parts to the equation: the amount of hours and then the rate. The hours do increase from time to time because there might be scope increases, there might be specific areas that we need to look at, but then hopefully that gets compensated through the rate that gets charged. So that's a commitment that is made. So I'm just reiterating that message.
Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the issues and questions have been well covered. Yeah, we need to comply, and obviously by definition we'd be in trouble if we didn't. So there's not a lot of wriggle room for us here, and I hope that we don't have to wriggle too much. I don't think we do a pretty good job of presenting the material facts of the operation as we need to. So I'm happy to endorse the report.
Thank you, Councillor Fulton. How can anyone follow up to that summary? Any further speakers? No, there appear to be none. I'll put that. Oh, yeah, Gordon.
Look, we reluctantly accept the additional budget, but we know the reasons why, and I was aware of that from recent conversations. So to say at a national level, the whole topic of auditing and the cost has been raised. Because there is concerns about the costs, particularly imposed on smaller councils, and the frequency of audit requirements and the need for those. Now we get really good service from Audit New Zealand, so I don't want to say we don't, but it is a concern for councils. The other is when we're in the face of all the change that's apparently coming, the need for the same stringent requirements for long-term plan audits and others is certainly a matter that councils or local government New Zealand are going to be raising on behalf of councils, and as the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Fulton will be aware, they were matters that were raised extensively last week, because when we're going through the change that we're going through, plus also representation reviews and others, some of that may just be redundant work if the government goes through with what it's proposing. So don't want to see councils embark upon expensive processes that may well be a pause may be helpful. And it's not saying you shouldn't do your LTPs, but it might be just a light over approach as opposed to a full-on process, which would in essence, represent a saving. Look, we note the additional budget. It's very difficult to argue with it when we're not able to go out externally and use others to do our audit requirements for us. But it is, I don't want it to ever be implied that we don't support Audit New Zealand and the work that they do, but these costs that keep mounting are certainly ones that our communities just struggle to keep continuing to meet, and especially smaller councils that don't have the same rating base that we do. So I just wanted to note that, Mr. Chair, and for the purposes of the debate, to put that on record.
Thank you for that, Gordon. With no further speakers.
Gee, yeah, maybe just comment on that. The officer is continuously engaging with DIA to ensure that we do have a streamlined approach to long-term plans. We've also, I think, made a submission to reflect that there's a lot of change within the environment, and again, a lot of uncertainty. Every LDP round, we comment on the amount of uncertainty that there is, and again, I think we find ourselves in a similar situation this round again. So as an office, we are continuously engaging with DIA and relevant stakeholders to ensure that one still gets value for money as part of this process. I know that's one of the key focus areas of the new Auditor General, is to ensure that across government there's value for money, and an LTP process can be seen as one of those areas that we need to do work, but at the same time, it needs to be of value. So to ensure that there's a streamlined approach, we are working on that as well.
Thank you for that. And with those points, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much for coming in. And we'll divert back to deputations, if that's all good. And we'll ask David Walker to come up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, all. So yeah, I'm stepping in for your regular Miles O'Connor. He's put together some slides which I'll talk to. Actually, on that point, what's the expected time limit? I'm just trying to think about the right balance. Really?
We have 15 minutes, but we're pretty flexible.
Careful what you wish for there. So, look, I'll just talk to the economic slides and obviously talk about your debt position as well. But potentially, if of interest, a large part of my work recently has been with water entities. I'm directly involved with 7 other water CCO type entities, so there's some quite interesting learnings associated with that, and also to do some work in terms of some of the reforms that have been proposed as well. So happy to take any questions on those. I'm mindful this is a public forum, so I will probably be more cautious in some of my responses on that than I will be otherwise, but yeah, just take that as an open invitation.
Thank you.
Rightio, is anyone driving the... Oh, is that me, is it? Yep. Oh, thank you. Oh, this one here, is it? Oh, cool. Rightio, so it doesn't quite fit on, but basically the purpose of this graph is just to show that long-term interest rates, and we'll talk about the difference between short-term and long-term interest rates, have changed dramatically in recent times. The main impact, there we've got New Zealand, US and Aussie. I'll just talk about the US. The US 10-year bond is around about 4.6%. They're battling issues around the level of their debt. They're now spending about the same amount on debt as they are on interest in terms of their deficit. Historically, that's been a trigger to show that things are quite seriously wrong in terms of deficit levels. Australia, they're an interesting case where the RBA has actually increased their interest rates, I think 2-3 times this year, because they have a genuine inflation issue, and that was even before the oil shock that I'll talk about later too. And to be honest, New Zealand's just kind of been dragged up because of those factors. You can probably see there from the graph, and I'm sure Miles has spoken about this in the past, that the correlation between those three countries is quite significant. And you go, well, why is that? And the reason why that is, investors have a choice in terms of where they put their money. So generally, if one goes up, others go up. It's just a relative type argument. Oil prices, again, this won't be of any surprise, particularly those in terms of the farming community in particular. While oil's got a heck of a lot of coverage, diesel is obviously a lot more significant, and diesel in particular has direct impacts to the farming community for any item that needs to be transported as well. aviation gas is an issue too for New Zealand as well, and you've probably seen that in terms of the recent Air New Zealand announcements in terms of their woes. Another graph here, really just same sort of stuff. It just throws on some extra sort of elements to it, but just focus on that pink bit at the top there. That's basically urea prices. So again, maybe we'll talk about this later, unintended consequences, but oil impacts a whole lot of other things rather than just, oil. So, and again, it has impacts for our farming community. No, I'll stop there for a moment because farming community is interesting because one of the few bright spots in terms of New Zealand at the moment is the farming community. Commodity prices are holding up really well. And arguably, if you didn't have a strong provincial sector at the moment, you'd be talking about the word recession across New Zealand. So arguably you've got recessions already in Auckland and Wellington, but that's offset by growth in the provinces. Oh yeah, on that point too, unemployment rate in Otago at the moment is about 3%. Canterbury's a little bit more than that. Auckland is 6% plus. So that tells quite a big story about the differences between the two, those particular regions. Global inflation measures, yeah, again, nothing that's going to surprise you there, but inflation's impacting everybody, everything. And looking closer to home, you sort of think, gee, if inflation's going to be an issue for, certainly for the short and potentially medium term, how does that impact things like councils in terms of rate caps as well? And it just poses some additional challenges for those types of reforms, I think, going forward. Let's ignore that. And not unsurprisingly, and again, going back to the comments I made, particularly about the urban centres, New Zealand confidence has fallen really significantly and since the start of the year. And I think the difference between this situation and the event that we had, perhaps the kind of recessionary impacts we had last time, if you go back a couple of years ago, the job market was really strong. It's not the case now. So it's tough when you're actually looking at tougher personal circumstances and you've got the overhang of unsettled job market as well. Again, not only is consumer confidence down, business confidence is down. That's really significant because without business confidence, CEOs, CFOs haven't got the confidence to go out there and invest to make the economy grow. And that's an understandable reaction to the uncertainty that the world is seeing at the moment. This is back here where we're talking about the difference between short and longer term rates. Been a really significant spike in terms of longer term rates. But at the moment, we've still got the OCR at 225, which is extraordinarily low. That will change, but I don't think it's going to. It won't change. In my personal view, it won't change as dramatically as that the swap market is currently pricing in, or the fixed rate loan market is currently pricing in. I don't think I've got the graph with me, but there's a large range of opinions between the bank economists in terms of what the outlook is going to be. So that's Waimak District Council's position. Is currently policy compliant. Might be just a little under in terms of some of the shorter policy requirements, but time erosion will basically see a situation where it'll need to undertake some further fixed rate hedging, which my colleague Miles O'Connor will be talking to your respective teams about. That as well, that's kind of misleading, so I won't worry that because the projected cost of funds is kind of based off, it's a mathematical formula based off the swap rate, so I wouldn't read too much into those sorts of numbers. So that Audit and Risk Committee is the end of the presentation. So here is your opportunity for some interesting questions.
Any questions? Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, David. Again, just touching on a colleague and I went with local government conference last week, and I think it was someone from the energy sector talked about diesel as being a real marker for for business growth, or, you know, is that your reading of it? That does it actually shows, like in the transport industry, whether there's economic confidence is rising, etc. How important is diesel, you know, as a sort of bellwether?
Yeah, no, it's significantly big. Diesel is, almost any industrial user of any type uses diesel. Interesting, the ANZ have got something called the truckometer, catchy name, and that measures the amount of truck activity across the country. So that's goods going backwards and forwards. And obviously trucks use diesel, so I'm just using the one as a segue into the other. But again, that's showing quite a significant change in movement across the country as well. And that's despite, as I say, the rural sector doing very, very well at the moment.
Yeah. So when you look at that diesel prices, so Mr. Chair, have you got any view as to whether it's actually worthwhile sort of winding back the clock and government sort of intervening and helping to subsidise those sort of fuel prices and sort of things, or does that ultimately just delay an effect later on? I know that's a big
so
sort of
so who's going to pay for that again?
Yeah. Well, we've been here. Well, the question is, we've been here before, haven't we? You know, when government has sort of, you know, stepped in to support businesses, etc., or to support.
I've got to be careful what I say, but in general, I don't see subsidies as being a good longer-term strategy. Maybe that is a band-aid. Ultimately, across the world, in terms of, it's careful what you say in terms of time, but if you look at the last OPEC oil shock, which was 78 to sort of 85, that was a scenario when about 5% of world oil was impacted. Here we've got a situation around about 20% of world oil is sort of impacted, right? So I think the answer to the situation around oil prices is there's got to be a reduction in demand, and maybe again politically got to keep so like electrification stuff. But like for example, if you sort of provide subsidies or you cut your fuel taxes and stuff, in some ways that doesn't send the right signals to the market from a supply and demand sort of situation. So if you are going to use those tools, I think you've got to be really careful about how you do that.
Councillor Doody.
Thank you very much. Just carrying on with the farming sector, there's an old saying that when farmers put their checkbooks away, the country's in dire straits. Do you feel we're moving into that level?
Well, depends what sort of farmers you're talking about. Obviously, any Fonterra associated farmers, their checkbook's probably looking pretty damn good at the moment. Yes, so that's going to provide a buffer for, you know, for potentially a couple of years.
Sheep farmers.
Sheep farmers, yeah. Well, again, it's interesting. Most of the commodity prices, again, apologies, I haven't got the chart, but in general, commodity prices are holding in really well. So you've got a situation where global prices are still good. The New Zealand dollar is quite low. Yes, farmers have got higher input prices, but net, most are actually doing okay. There are obviously not. You can't apply that situation to everybody, but in general, the rural community is doing good.
Okay. Councillor Cairns, then Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, David, for coming along. In terms of the currency exchange rates, let's see if you look at a year ago with Australia, 93 cents for the dollar. Currently, we're 82 cents.
Yep.
What is your thoughts in terms of how that's going to impact on our borrowings and that sort of thing in our economy within the waimakariri?
Well, someone who's got got sons in Australia and I visit there very often, I feel like the New Zealand dollar is more like the New Zealand peso at the moment when it comes to buying anything from overseas. But yeah, look, it's 81 cents ish. Yeah, I remember. You may remember over the last 5-10 years, we've had every now and again. You've almost had talk of parity parties where the New Zealand dollar gets the same value as the Aussie dollar. But I think I would like to think we're kind of at the lows at the moment. And so part of the reason that the Aussie dollar is so strong is that the Reserve Bank is still raising their rates. So you've got like a 1.5% interest rate differential in terms of New Zealand and Australia. And I just think that once that interest rate differential narrows, the exchange rate will be back to normal. So all things being equal, we should be at the bottom end of that range, that Kiwi-Aussie range.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, David. the farmers, urea, well, I used to do a lot of work with ravens down throughout South Island. What do they produce? Because I've been where they extract fertiliser out of the ground all around the place, particularly out north of Kaikoura and Timaru and all around. Is that helpful to our farmers, or is that different to what we have to import?
Oh, does anyone know more about fertiliser than I? Don't know.
Comes from oil.
Gas.
Yeah, apologies, I don't know. Simply don't know.
You're asking the wrong person.
Oh, well.
Deputy Mayor Redmond.
Thank you for your presentation. I read a commentary recently that global markets are grossly overpriced and that an adjustment or reset downwards is coming. And it referred, I think, to the massive US debt, trillions of dollars, and what's happening in America. Is there any validity in that, or is it just sort of part of the cycle?
You're talking about the equity markets.
Yeah, shares and things.
No, that's a very fair point. And in a normal sort of world, if you're sort of situation of high inflation, high debt, you'd see a weaker rather than stronger equity markets. I'm loath to say this time is different because that I would generally always get shot down by that. But this time, particularly in terms of the US, particularly if you look at the US equity market, that's the one that's really performing. If you look at Aussie and New Zealand, it's been real struggling at best. But the US market is just dominated by that AI thing. And that is significant and that is real. It may be overhyped slightly, but it's what that is seeing in terms of its flow through to the broader US economy is significant. Like I heard slight anecdote, but data centre, the guys that lay the concrete and those concrete machines to press the concrete, there's now such a shortage of those roles. They're actually paying $200,000 for those guys to actually put the concrete down. So again, that's just an example. There's such a huge amount of infrastructure and spending that's occurring because of the AI boom in terms of data centres, tech. That's the bit that is really sort of, that's part of the equity market that's really surged. Rest has done kind of okay. And I think the reason it's kind of done okay is that if you look at the US, they're one of the few countries now that are net exporters of oil, so that they're less impacted by higher oil prices. Still impacted, but in a relative sense less. So arguably you're seeing money coming from other parts of the world to the US. So I don't think I've really answered your question, but I've explained why basically the...
So you're not expecting a reset in the immediate future? I mean, I know you haven't got a crystal ball.
Yeah. Some parts of the US economy are really overvalued, so it depends in terms of hype. The hype becomes a reality or not. So there are some good, genuine question marks around that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any further questions of Dave? No, there appear to... Oh, Councillor Ward.
Well, just, how many interest rate hikes do you expect this year and when?
Oh, good. I'm hoping you asked that one. So,
happy to.
yeah, that's an easier one. That's more on my lane. So we'll just go. I spoke before about a wide range of opinions between the banks. And firstly, we've kind of got to acknowledge the tough spot the Reserve Bank is in. The Reserve Bank's job is generally to increase and decrease the OCR to change the level of aggregate demand in the New Zealand economy. Now, the issue at the moment is that New Zealand is not dealing with a demand issue, it's dealing with a supply shock. So there's not a lot, there's very little that the Reserve Bank can do to control the price of oil. So they're dealing with a situation where most economists think inflation is going to be a real problem for the next year and then tail off. We already, as I said, we're already dealing with a scenario where arguably we've got a recession in Wellington and Auckland already. So what does raising rates actually do? My answer to that is it's kind of symbolic. They've got to do stuff to kind of show that they are kind of trying to get inflation back, even though that it's a really tricky thing. So you've got a situation where you've got BNZ and Westpac. They're the most aggressive. They see an OCR of 4%, and I think it's late 27, and that's quite remarkable. That's from a 225 situation that we have at the moment. You've got ASB that thinks we'll have 4 hikes that will take the OCR from 225 to 325, and you've got ANZ that thinks that we'll have the Reserve Bank will act early and 75 points of increases, and there may be a cut. Now, my quick view on interest rates is that for New Zealand, our neutral fair rate OCR is somewhere between 3 and 3.5. So I always felt that anything below 3% from New Zealand point of view was a bonus. I just see us returning to a more normal situation, 3 to 3.5%. So that's my view on that.
Just on that, with regards to, like, I suppose traditional theory, has controlling the interest rates actually delivered the results over the previous years that it was expecting in a wider context, or are we working on other tools to try and ease these highs and lows?
Boy, that's a tough question. Yeah, wasn't expecting that today. Look, I think like a lot of things is nothing's ever perfect. Or what's the next best option, right? So in general, while actually inflation, controlling inflation, it's really important, and I think we've seen that in the last 3 years or 4 years, where if you don't control inflation, you get higher living costs, you get which impacts different sectors of the population more than others. But again, if you look at what people vote on, right? It's their what's in their pocket at the end of the day, and cost of living is such an important thing. So yeah, I see inflation and cost of living. Well, the correlation's never going to be perfect. It's aimed at basically trying to stop inflation becoming embedded and ongoing, which has a whole lot of negative impacts for most members of the community. It's arguably it's a greater good type argument. Again, not perfect, but yeah.
It's the best tool we have currently.
Yeah. It's almost like a democracy question. So.
Right. Any further questions? There appear to be none. So thank you very much for your time today, David.
Yeah. Actually, I thought someone was going to ask me the question about that, and I was going to say, if anyone can confidently tell you the answer to that question, don't trust them.
Thank you. Just for the record, Joan, what was that question?
Well, I think there's, I probably, if I said what I really think.
Okay. Right, we'll move right along.
You can say
with deputations concluded, we'll call on item agenda 5.2, Capital Works quarterly update.
No, it was my hair with a hitman on me.
Good morning.
There is a salsa dancer, as I understand it, from the radio this morning.
Good morning. We will take this report as being read, the Capital Works report. To date, we have spent 35.69 million against a budget of 80.91 million, or equivalent to 41% of the budget. We're predicted to have 70% of the budget spent by end of June. As we are getting close to the end of the year, we have, you will notice that there's a lot of projects that we have highlighted as being either delayed or at risk. This is due to dependencies and tight schedules. For the at risk, we are managing those and putting mitigations in place, and they will be delivered where possible. Over to questions.
Thank you very much for that very brief summary. Any questions of the report? Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to the particulars of the tables and the completion rates, I have to ask the drainage seems, back on what you might have predicted, and yeah, up and down. But there's also a mention of the reason for the delays in curb and channel. It says changes in contract and methodology extending overall program. So can you give us a bit of a sense of what has changed? Because that's the contractor's methodology is affecting our performances as I read it.
Yeah, and it's a little bit hard to go into full detail without kind of talking about some commercial discussions, but in that case, the contractor has been having some challenge with, I understand, subcontractors and people, especially with the climate, with fuel cost changes and so on. They've had to look at how they can deliver their work without the use of subbies, and the only way they could do that was to take longer to do it. And the position we're in is to either really accept their methodology or start exploring kind of enforcement actions under the contract, which inevitably I think would have just made things actually take longer and be more painful and go down a dispute path. So we tried to work with them, but we had to accept it would impact on the completion rate, rather than going down kind of a contractual dispute path.
Is that what, where are the sensitivities? Is that something that we can come back and discuss in another forum? I'll certainly like to endorse that if there's commercial, but given the scope of that, of their impact on the drainage, and seems like a commercial considerations there.
Would that be more a
briefing or something, or some sort of forum? Yeah.
Yeah, or even next time we have a portfolio update, I could come and talk to that potentially.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yep.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Any further questions?
It is what it is.
It is what it is, Joan. Just on that point regarding the working with the contractor and the enforcement options, is there like a tipping point where we would actually go down that path, or is that more if the relationship's already not, like, we're trying to maintain our relationship with them, I would imagine, to get the best outcome. So what would kind of be the tipping point from a council's perspective to try and move things along?
There's probably a few things to consider. One is kind of what will this path lead to a better outcome for the council or not, and sometimes going down an enforcement path can achieve that, like if you enforce things under a contract. Other times you can invest a lot of time and energy in it and you don't achieve necessarily savings or accelerate a program. The other thing is it depends on also, is the contractor making as many reasonable efforts as they can to fulfill their obligations, or are they deliberately not doing that? And that the answer to that question can also help see what path to follow as well. And I think in this case, I think the contractor was genuinely trying their best to find a solution, the best they could in the circumstances they're in. Because it has been a tough time for contractors. They submit prices and we don't pay cost fluctuations and contracts with a fixed deliverable. It's only the maintenance contracts. So they, under contracts we have with them, they're obliged to hold prices they submitted pre-fuel costs going up, even though we know their true costs have gone up. So it is challenging for contractors.
However, at the same time, we do have to honour what the contract says, and if costs had gone the other way, we know that contracts wouldn't have come to us and said, oh, we can give you 10% back on that and 20% on that. So it does go both ways. But in the current climate, it is, the contractors are going through challenging times, and we're trying to, if they're trying their best to work with us, we'll generally try to do the same.
Councillor Fulton.
Just slightly broader, but I think in a meeting last week, it might have been Don Young behind you, had talked about our pavements. We've got a lot of painted lines out there on our pavements. I was up in Oxford last week, and it might have been associated with some existing roadworks, but sort of an alphabet soup of a whole lot of sprays. And I just thought, are we dealing with also our footpath work? Is that up to spec as well, or are we behind in that area? In terms of our ability to complete on time and keep it up to date.
So I think there's a footpath contract that's tied in with the curb and channel renewal. So there's a footpath budget that is impacted, but it's kind of contract by contract and contractor by contractor. It's not. I don't think there's like a common theme across the board. It's just in certain specific contracts we've had or contractors have come to us with issues completing it rather than an across the board issue. But
okay, so it's still across.
Yeah.
Being who the contractor is. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Just 1 second, Councillor Doody. Don, did you want to quickly say something on that, or?
Just to clarify, that conversation came up as we were presenting to the council what we thought your future budgets should be, and certainly there are some budget constraints in terms of completing, and Joanne put forward numbers to you which would reduce that backlog over a period of time due to the amount of faults and flaws out there in our footpaths. So it's not a contractual delivery thing, it's more of a budget
restraint.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Doody.
But no, just answer my question.
Oh, excellent. Councillor Powell.
Thank you. Apologies for being late this morning. Could I please just ask about the roading around the, in 3.3.3, it says the Woodend to Kaiapoi Cycleway, William Street to Woodend Beach. And that is an at-risk project. Is that actually meant to be the William Street into Kaiapoi Cycleway?
I'm actually not 100% sure on that one. So it's the Woodend to Kaiapoi Cycleway, William Street to Woodend Beach Road.
Don's.
Okay. Don, you've got some on that?
That will refer to the William Street to Pine Acres section.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Is not proceeding at the same time frame, and that actually is the same contractor as was referred to with the curb and channel. So there has needed to be some discussions and shifting of work programs. So you will note that we have completed the portion in Old North Road, but the section in William Street is probably not going to finish now until August.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks for that, Don.
Any further questions? There appear to be none. So we've got a few recommendations ahead of us. Do we have a mover for 5.3? Councillor Fulton, seconder. Councillor Ward. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think our questions sort of brought forth the information that we sort of require for now, just to help us understand what some of those delays are, and I look forward to hearing more in other forums, because it is tough times for contractors and subbies and anyone across the trades, but I also recognise that we also have an array of people doing work for us in contracts, and any of the hiccups that we see don't necessarily extend right across the board, and it's not a commentary on all our contractors and associated people. So happy to accept the recommendations in these, or endorse the recommendations in this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you for this report and for the work that you do all year. I know under trying times as well. But I guess what we'll be doing is, in accepting this recommendation, we'll be looking to next year's annual plan and adjusting our capital expenditure and hopefully to get completion of some of these. And will it affect next year's, when we talk about that in the next few days and weeks. So we'll have a look across the board and see our priorities, which will be affected by the completion of some of these projects as well. So thank you for your work.
Any further speakers? Councillor Dooley.
Thank you. Thank you very much about that. I'm just with what's happening at the world in the moment and the tightness of our economy, that is going to affect a number of wage earners with what we can't do and what they are hoping that, you know, they'll still have a job at the end of the day. So those are things we've got to think about as well, because we're just not, it is our community.
Thank you, mate. Yes, I guess I'll just like to note that it's always a wee bit, I suppose, humbling to not be able to achieve what we set out to, but the amount of change that we've experienced over this last financial year, I don't think anyone will grieve us too much for having to make some changes. So thank you for the report, and I look forward to seeing future reports with a slightly slimlined capital works to be able to have a higher percentage. So thank you very much. I'll put those. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to 5.3, financial report. Paul.
Thank you. This is the financial report to the end of March 2026. Some of the items I'd like to highlight. Surplus was 11.6 million compared to a budget of 17.8 million. I think the explanation of the variances there are in 4.2 of the report. But generally the expenditure's been less than budget, but also the revenue has been less than budget as well, in particular development contribution revenue and vested assets revenue. I did a bit of a check from last year. While the DC's revenue is under budget, at the same time last year, DC revenue was 7.4 million and it's 10.2 million this year. So there has been an increase from last year, but it's still under budget. Debt at 31 March was 225 million. That's increased since the last quarter. We raised a new $15 million worth of debt. We won't need to raise any further before the end of June. And that's against a forecast from the LTP that we'd have 256 million debt by the end of the year. I did a calculation of the net debt to operating revenue by taking the 9 months and extrapolating it out for 12 months. That leaves us our net debt to operating at 128%, which is around about where it's been sitting for the last couple of years. So that's still well within our policies. And the last point I'd like to bring up is to look at the cash flow statement. The cash flow from operating was 27.4 million. At the same time last year it was 35.1 million. That cash flow from operating, generally that cash is needed essentially for helping to pay our renewals, capital works, and I had to check the renewals for the 9 months was 16.2, so that cash inflow is covering that cash outflow on renewals, and there's some extra as well. So those are good numbers. Are there any questions on the report?
Thank you for the report. Councillor Ward.
Thank you for your report, and thanks for the great work that you do, keeping us financially stable and in track. Can you confirm that on the 15th of May, the 15th of April, we repaid $35 million worth of previous debt?
15th of May, hang on.
This year. This is after March.
Yeah. We did. We did a repayment of 20 million on 15th of May.
15th of May, 10 million. 15th of April, 10 million. 15th of April, 15 million.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was thinking May alone. Yep. Yes. Yep. But we repaid those. But then what I would call a renewal. So we've taken debt on the same amount of debt again, raised in new bonds. Yep.
But at least we're repaying debt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Paul, for that comprehensive report and overview. Just noting, I think you covered in some of your points here, but highlighting again, 4.6 debt, external debt, 7.7% of the council's total assets. That's less than the 15%, for example. And interest costs of 5%. Below the and its threshold's 15%. So if we're tracking that well below those sort of thresholds, and I realise that no one should target the 15% external debt, does that mean, because we're not paying all that extra cost, does that give us headroom to capitalise more aggressively, to take on more projects? I mean, so what do we do if we're tracking so well there? Does it actually open up opportunities to us to either aggressively pay off our debt faster, or to do more projects, or what sort of opportunity does it give us?
Those are choices you can make. The other thing I suppose I would be looking at is to when we're considering options like that, we've got our LTP that looks out 10 years. And we've got a fairly large capital program booked for, it would have been year 4 and 5 of our LTP, particularly around the Rangiora Eastern Link and the library projects. So whether you weigh up, you'd need to weigh up paying off debt against future projects. Essentially, you look at your financials around all those things. So that's
So does it mean if you're making I know it's not a saving because it is what it is, but it could be much worse. It could be worse. It could be like, we could be nearer those thresholds. So what you're saying is that you've got that money effectively that you could just shift it from debt repayments to a project and bring things forward if you chose to do so.
Yeah, well, again, if you look at that 10-year period, if you want to do some significant capital works, before you go into those significant capital work, you probably need to have a bit of headroom in your debt so that when you do take on a large project, the debt will rise at that point. So when you're considering how you manage your debt, one of the things that should be considered is what you're planning to do in, say, the medium term. And as I said, the last couple of years we haven't had any very big capital projects. I'd call it sort of a capital program which is sort of business as usual. But yeah, we know we've got a couple of large capital projects coming up in the near future. So when you're considering changes to that, you'd need to consider those projects that you're planning to do in the future.
Any further questions to the report? I've got a few just for them. a line that's always intrigued me, but I always fail to ask the question. Petrol tax, how is that actually calculated for a local authority? Do we know?
Well, Chris might know this better, but generally the petrol stations that sell petrol, they in the district have to make returns to, is it DIA they send it to? I'm not sure, of what petrol they sell, and we get a share of that.
Okay, that's interesting. And just on roading again, in terms of the structural maintenance, the variance seems quite large. When we're organising our budgets for the year, do we actually account for like construction season, if that makes sense, or is it kind of just a flat-lined quarterly throughout the approach?
Yeah, with roading in particular, we do some modelling based on past years of when the budget, we think the budget will hit, but it's always an estimate.
Yeah, and that's good. Thank you very much. All right, there appears to be no further questions. Oh, Deputy Mayor Reid.
Thank you. Just in passing, I used to be a member of the Petroleum Tax Allocation Committee back in the 1980s. I'm rather surprised to see it still exists. But anyhow, my question for you is, are we fully compliant with our Treasury policy, or in fact, a lot of our results are more favourable than the policy provides? Is that correct?
Yes, we are compliant and on some of the measures we're a long way under. But as I said in the earlier answer, we probably need to be well under at this point because of planned work coming up.
Just in North Canterbury, the petroleum tax. So how that happens is we're in a North Canterbury tax area. Before amalgamation, there used to be probably about 20 councils within that, but now there's only 2, Huronui and ourselves. And so Paul was correct, it's based on the sales from each of the petrol companies in this tax area. And then I think it's something like 0.0033 cents or something. And it's different for diesel as it is for petrol. And that's allocated on a percentage of the allocation in this district. So we get about 80% of that, the sales within the Huronui in our own district.
Councillor Doody?
Just a question on it. Does that also cover when the farmers get their tanks filled up at their property?
Yes, it does. So the petrol companies have to make the return. We get a copy of that, and then we collate it, and we send Huronui their portion of the collection.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. There appears to be no further questions. Do we have a mover for the report? Councillor Ward. Councillor Bartle will second. Yeah. Councillor Ward.
Thank you very much for the report, and under the circumstances, I think we're tracking really, really favourably, and very hugely favourably, but really, really well. And it's all down to great teamwork that's headed by our CEO, Jeff, and Chris, and your team as well. So thank you very much for looking after our financial situation and keeping us in line and keeping us on the right track. So we appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Councillor Bartle.
Nothing further to add. I think it's all been covered.
Any further speakers to the report? There appear to be none. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much, Paul. Moving on to 5.4, non-financial performance measures.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'd like to present the report for the Q3. I'll take the reporter to read. Any questions, please?
Any questions on the report? There appear to be none. Okay. Do we have a mover for the report? Councillor Doody, seconder. Councillor Ward. Councillor Doody. Nothing to say. Councillor Ward?
Top secret.
Right.
Well, all I can say is our performance is really, really great. And it exceeds, I'm sure, a lot of other councils. And I know the staff work really, really hard on giving a great performance to everybody. And so thank everybody for their efforts. And I get great reviews all the time on the response that people get. So tell the staff, well done, keep up great work.
Any further speakers? Councillor Fulton.
You indulge me with a late question, or was it commentary?
Oh, yeah. Very, very late question.
No. Well, it's really just to do with the reference, a technical reference to the percentage of real water loss from the network reticulation system. And it says the change from previous years is primarily due to an increase in the night flow, which proportionally affects the calculated. So what happens at night? Is this to do with usage of water at night? Why are we losing more water at night? Yeah, I knew that wasn't quite yours.
No, but we do have people here
What
this
is
time.
night flow?
Sorry, I can help because I used
Flushing the loo.
I used to do the reporting on this. So the way that when you measure water loss, the best way to do it is to meet every single property and look at what leaves your water headworks and what gets consumed, and the difference is what you've lost. When you don't have that, the next best way to estimate water usage is to try to find the time when there's the least genuine water consumption, which is middle of the night in winter. Look at what your flow is at night, so your night flow, and then there's some parameters for like assumed genuine usage at night, and anything that's left over from that genuine usage you would expect at night is assumed to be water that's lost out of your pipes. And so then basically, so in short, by looking at your night flows at the right time of year, at the right time, you estimate how much water is being lost out of your pipes, and that's what we report on as our leakage rates.
Okay, so that's right.
So the moral of the story is don't go night time.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, that's good advice, thanks.
So would you like to repeat that again?
For the record. Right, are there any other last minute questions before we put that?
You can sleep now.
All right, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Good morning. Just in time.
I thought there was another report before me. I will take the report as read, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So just for clarity, we're on the report of 5.5 outcomes of the Waimakariri District Council Health and Safety Register. Are there any questions to the report? Councillor Bartle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the report. Just curious, page 199, it mentions harm from violent/aggressive public. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Has there been any actual injuries from this? Is this more a threat intent, or like how concerned? I mean, it's rated here as critical, which is quite high.
Good question. Yes, over I think the 9 years that I've been here, we have had some aggressive interactions in terms of physical and quite substantial threats. So it is very valid having the violence side of it in there. However, we are looking at splitting out that risk and taking it from critical to two risks being high, just given the fact that having a violent interaction is very different to having perhaps an adverse interaction from a verbal perspective. So we need to look at those two risks separately. So that will come in the next review, but it is being worked on at this point. But yes, we have had those. So we're looking at them now as being sort of like an almost certain for an adverse interaction in terms of verbal abuse or via media or something like that. And the serious one that we're looking at in terms of the violence will go from rare but to severe, so it will still put it in the high category.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions to the report? There appears to be none. Do we have a move of the report? Mayor Gordon, seconder. Councillor Fulton. Mayor Gordon.
Just to acknowledge the importance of this reporting, but underlying it is the work that goes on with the team, and I really do want to acknowledge Katrina in particular for the professionalism that you show in this space, because there's all, not for reporting in general, David, but there are a number of things that go on, and they don't always meet the threshold of what's underlying here, but it's the professional way in which that's managed, conversations with the right people to help make sure people are feeling safe in the environments I know. Unfortunately, I've had to call upon that support on a few occasions myself, and I just want to acknowledge the professionalism that you and your team show, as well as the how serious the Chief Executive does take these matters, because he does. It's when we shouldn't be experiencing these things, but we do. It's a sad reality of the environment. You know, it's not just the physical, actually, it's the verbal that comes about, and there seems to be a lot more permission that's come about in recent years for people to feel it's okay to say things, which doesn't actually personally impact me, but I'm surprised family members and friends, like there was some rubbish being said at the weekend on some social media. I have had a lot of texts and messages just checking if I was okay. So I'm fine. I don't really take much notice of that rubbish that's on there. But at the end of the day, there are people that care about us out there that don't like this sort of thing. Some feel it's okay to make things up when it's not. And it goes underlying the overall well-being of not only elected members but also our staff. So I just wanted to put on record our thanks to you for the work that you do.
Pleasure. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope it goes without saying that that we need to operate in a sort of safe and caring environment, and I think the work that you do and the systems that you have in place and your monitoring go a long way towards that. Unfortunately, it only takes one or two people with significant behavioural issues to sort of move that dial and create a less unsafe space, or the perception of a less unsafe space. And I think we're all aware of who some of those people are in our community, and it's good to know that you're on top of them, really, quite literally, because they really do go a long way towards making this a less sort of welcoming place in a community. And so good work, and we look forward to keeping in touch with further reporting. Thank you.
Any further speakers to the poll? There appear to be none. I'll put that. All those in favour, please.
I don't want to exercise.
Sorry, I'll retract. Would you like to exercise your right of reply? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to 5.6, reporting of Lagoima requests. Oh, it's not that bad, is it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I would like to report that we responded to 71 official requests for information in the period from January to March. It took staff approximately 10 working days to do that, and I just want to thank all the departments and the staff who actually puts up with my nagging for information and actually makes it possible for us to respond in this time frame. Responding to information requests is clearly a team sport. And also we spend approximately 132 hours responding to these requests. I will take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions to the report? Deputy Mayor Redmond.
Good morning to you. Since the council introduced a charging policy, how many requests have actually incurred a cost?
None. We do give the people the option to either refine their request or be charged. Some of the people who requested the information then refined their request, but most of them just then abandoned the requests.
Thank you. Second question. I note there were some Privacy Act requests without disclosing what they were. What is sort of the nature of those requests?
Privacy Act requests were for all documentation that the council held that refers to a private person, and we had 2 of those from 2 private individuals that wanted all the documentation.
Right, thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to you for the report. Just wondering, in the trending, the graphs are sort of a little inconsistent, one could say. Over time, over the years, is there a trend in the types of questions, or is it sort of much the same?
I would say the majority of the questions refers to zoning application or consent applications or CCTV footage, people who experience incidents or who are investigating issues with the council. And then also it depends on what is trending in the media, and that also influence what requests for information that we receive. And then also, stuff like the local body elections and incidents like that also then has an influence on the type of requests that we receive.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kins, then Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 2 of your report, Tia, it talks about approximately $10,000 is the cost to put these requests together. Is this a true reflection of the actual costs? Does it take into account, like overheads and all of the other things, or does it just talk about really the cost of manpower?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is just staff hours. This is not the overheads. It's literally based on the Department of Justice calculation of $76 per hour for staff time.
Thank you. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tia, just going back to your original comments about the total number of hours, 132, I see if you broke that down, you've got at least 3 different parties which were between an estimated time of 20 and 30 hours each out of the 130, and yet going to the question, you didn't feel that it was worthy of imposing a penalty. I mean, that seems quite disproportionate for
I'm sorry.
Oh, well, you've got one in the notes. It says that you had one party, the estimated time exceeded 30 working hours. I don't know whether it made up to 30 hours. Another one was exceeded 24 hours. Third one was 24 hours. Is that 3 parties as a proportion of the 132 hours? No.
These are the
estimates.
This is the estimated hours that it would have taken us to respond to these requests. We then send a notice to these people that we will not be able to respond due to the extensive research that was required. And of them, only 1 came back and refined their request, and that took us about 2 hours to respond to that request.
Right, they refined that to that extent, yeah.
Yes.
Right. And is that typical? I know there's the number of requests has increased. When you tell people that we say we're not going to spend 30 hours on this, typically do they come back and either they don't carry it on or there's just a couple of hours work?
I think, Councillor, to be honest, it depends on the nature of the request. Some people are fishing, and some people really want the information and they know what they're looking for, and those are the people who will then come back and refine their requests.
So just on that, curious, how do you calculate the expected time for a request? Do you have a average per question, or?
When we request the information from the departments, we ask them for their best guesstimate on how long it will take them to respond, and that is what we then use.
Okay.
It also depends on when we do a rough search of the system, on the amount of documentation that we can actually identify with that first search, and so we know how many documents we will have to go through to make sure that they apply to the Privacy and the Logoema Act. If you take into consideration on page 3 of my report, the one that took 30 hours, there was approximately 700 electronic documents that we would have had to go through.
Thank you very much. Any further questions to the report? There appear to be none. Do we have a mover? Tim Bartle. And the seconder? Mayor Gordon. Councillor Bartle.
Look, this is a requirement that the council has to do. It's part of the process, and I think you've streamlined it as well as it can be. I think the report speaks for itself, so nothing further to say.
Mayor Gordon.
Just to say, it's a fundamental part of open, transparent council. So it's a thing that we actually, and even if we weren't required to do it, it's something I think is good practice to do. But it is just noting the workload requirements that it does put on councils with that, and the obligations which then are in place around the Logoema. We're actually held to a higher standard for our decision making. I don't think people most realise this than Cabinet is. You can't get access to Cabinet decision making like our decision making is. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just it was pointed out to me by a former Cabinet Minister, just the rigour that we are required. When he came on to council, he couldn't get over the level that you're under compared to what actually happens at a council level. But Tia and the team do a great job of managing this. I know some of them I am party to at various times, which is fine. If anyone wants to trail through my emails, go for it. I live a very boring existence, so you're welcome to it. And most of them are to do with perfunctory things anyway. I've got nothing to hide, so people are most welcome to ask those if they really want it. But I just want to acknowledge the effort that does go in, and I think from the questions from colleagues, I think there's an acceptance that it's just part and parcel of what we're doing, but also to acknowledge the level of effort that it puts our staff under, and the cost that it puts the council on, under, which ultimately is a bill that the ratepayer is paying.
Any further speakers? Councillor Fulton.
I just had a point about the commentary about from 4.9 to promote transparency and accountability. The council maintains a publicly accessible list on all official information requests. It sort of makes me concerned in recent times. I think we've all received correspondence handed to us and then by a certain person, then followed up asking whether we're going to respond, what our response is. For transparency, do we have any obligations, to actually respond to to people if they, if they thrust some questions in front of us, asked us to respond by an email or some other way? Or should we I'm just sort of asking for a bit of advice here, I suppose. Should we make sure that all those questions are directed to us in a publicly accessible and transparent way?
That's a very interesting debating point, Councillor Fulton.
I just because we're asked the same question by and asked not to share the responses, so it kind of gets that's not very accessible and transparent to the public. The questions that were asked.
Yeah, as an elected member, it's if you feel like it's putting you under a bit of pressure to give the right information, you best ask for it in writing. You'll have relationships with different people in the community where you feel comfortable providing a verbal response. The council, as you know, has trim records for any correspondence that a councillor has, or an elected member and community board, if they so wish, to actually forward it to us, and we'll keep that on file. That keeps you fairly clear in terms of if a request comes for any legal correspondence. But it's really up to yourself what you disclose. Most of it's open. Of course, the public excluded information can't be disclosed until it's allowed to be. but that's really left to your discretion of what you provide to that individual. But I would recommend that you do a copy of that and put it into the council records.
So we can share the questions, because sometimes the question can be used as part of someone's narrative as well. Yeah.
Excellent. Any further speakers? Right of reply, Councillor Martin. All right, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, team. Thank you. Great work.
Moving on to item agenda number 6, portfolio updates. Starting off with Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Annual plan. We had hearings on Thursday the 7th of May. We received 59 submissions on the draft annual plan, with 25 submitters presenting to the council at the hearings. Feedback on our 4 areas of consultation: local government reforms, local water done well, Rangiora Eastern Link and the capital program received general support for the council's position. Annual plan deliberations are due to occur on the 26th of May, with adoption of the annual plan on the 16th of June. Our long-term plan, community outcomes and strategic priorities have been updated following council workshop feedback and were presented to management team to review last week. Feedback from this meeting will be incorporated in these before they are presented back to council. Asset management plans are in development. Review of the infrastructure strategy and significant assumptions is underway. Long-term plan risks. Early review of previous risks disclosed has been considered. Rating review. The rating review has commenced, with officers currently considering options for presentation to the next rating review working group on the 27th of May. A number of workshops are planned with council, 9 currently, from May to December, to present key information and receive feedback. External audit. Audit New Zealand completed their interim audit visit on the 8th of May. Feedback from the auditors was that the visit went well and the required work was completed and that had been programmed. No findings of significance have been raised from the visit. Thank you. That's the end of my report. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any questions for the report? There appears to be none. 6.2, communications. Councillor Powell.
Thank you. It's been a very busy little time for communications, particularly lately. So part of that is the Head Start pathway, of course, and they've been doing a lot of work with that, and the Pegasus Golf Course sale. And so the media inquiries to date this month, they're at 55 media inquiries, and just to put that into perspective, that compares to 84 for the last quarter. So 55 to date this month so far compared to 84 for the last quarter. So that gives you a sort of an idea of that. So of course the topics include the Pegasus Golf Course sale, Head Start pathway, Oxford Hospital, Bainans Road, annual plan, Wood End insurance, and a few others as well. So as Councillor Ward pointed out, we're still in the middle of the annual plan process with deliberations next week. Comms will then draft a response letter to each submitter and provide an update to submitters through the engagement platform. And as Councillor Ward also said, with there is a lot of engagement coming up with numerous plans, bylaws and policies that need to be updated. So that will keep that busy. So I do have figures for what happened in the last couple of quarters, so I will send those through to everybody.
Thank you very much.
So any questions from anyone?
Councillor Cairns.
I have a brief question. Thank you, Councillor. In regards to some of your media items in terms of what goes out, do you get any feedback from the community with regard to some of those media items? Like there was one where the staff members were doing a video and then it was going live to the UV treatment plant. Do you get any comments about some of the videos, positive or negative?
Certainly the view rates are very, very high on those videos. They're getting very good engagement with them, but and overall very positive. People are actually tuning in. Of course, there will be those that think it's a waste of time, but there's a lot of people actually really engaging with them and actually, I think, learning more about what council does.
Is there an opportunity to maybe next time share that that statistical information with regard to how much interaction people provide?
Yeah, I think last meeting we did have some viewership figures, but as you can see from the number of media queries happening at the moment and what's happening, they're pretty much under the pump at the moment.
Cool, thank you.
No further questions of the floor. Customer services, Councillor Durkee.
The workload of our staff has been excessive, and we really greatly appreciate everything they're doing. It's hard, tough times at the moment with everything, the rates and rate promises and helping seniors out with rate reductions and such like. The payment, and also just as interesting, the payment of the rates that had been promised at our last election was a fizzer. So which is a bit tough for Chris to have to deal with. And a changing of systems, putting the staff under pressure. Greatly appreciate the training that the staff are doing. And Chris, I really appreciate your time each month updating me on what staff has been doing and your updates. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you. And the coffee.
Coffee?
Coffee.
Yeah, Gordon.
After all the fuss at our last meeting about someone, it's taking a little liberty here, but paying their rates for an exchange for talking, my understanding is they were quite abusive to our customer service staff. Could we look at this both to Chris and can we get an outcome of has there been payment for rates as was offered in exchange for speaking rights, because that's what we were, the condition of it. What was the outcome of that? And secondly, just to make sure we review, I'm sure you are already, just the support to our customer service staff, because what went on in Kaiapoi that day was completely unacceptable from what I heard. And our staff don't deserve that treatment just because people are paying political stunts. So I'd just be interested to know what the outcome of that was, please, because they were going to immediately pay their rates, and did they?
So they didn't immediately pay their rates. They were offered tender for significantly less than the value of the rates, it was $10. That wasn't accepted.
$10 they?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was not accepted, of course. So we have continued to progress our collection procedures with those various debtors. In terms of the matter at Kaiapoi, we've had a full debrief on it. It's been logged as an adverse interaction, and we are talking about processes and procedures that we need to do if something were similar were to happen. So that's already commenced in terms of a debrief on that.
Any further questions? No. 6.4, procurement efficiencies and savings. Councillor Bartle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's been not an awful lot happen in this area, but a few updates to bring. So all of government contracts, staff continue to review use of all of government contracts. Recently, management team have approved for council to join the syndicated AOG contract for waste removal. This is the contracts of waste collection from council premises, so not curbside collections. The contract will provide Stinger commercial protections through an establishment or established contract and modest savings of approximately $1,700 a month, but they will add up, so it's all a significant win. Procurement activity, This continues to see a high level of activity with many procurement plans being reviewed weekly. The Rangiora Eastern Link, main physical works and design service contracts are the most significant recent procurement plans. The procurement strategy, REL, is scheduled to come to Council for approval on the June 2nd Council meeting. And also procurement resources for staff. Procurement resources on the Council system have recently been updated. These will assist staff with finding appropriate processes and policy documents and contract templates and answering any frequently asked questions, just to help and streamline the system, basically overall making it more efficient. That's pretty much it.
Excellent. Any questions of the report? There appear to be none. There are no recorded questions under standing orders, and to my knowledge, no urgent general business. So I'll put that, and our next meeting is on Tuesday the 16th of August at 9 a.m. right here. Thank you very much for your attendance, and go well.
Thank you.